A taxi driver is taken aback when he finds an abandoned baby in the back seat of his cab. After searching for the mother, he decides to adopt the child. Years later, however, he receives a call that alters the course of his life. Jack was a man burdened by many frustrations. Once a dedicated teacher, he genuinely enjoyed his job and cherished each day, even though some found it challenging and unenjoyable. The greatest joy for Jack came from seeing the smiles of children as they finally understood or learned something. It made all of his efforts worthwhile. Unfortunately, circumstances beyond his control forced him to leave teaching and take a job as a taxi driver. The hours were long, the pay was meager, and transporting people wasn't his true passion. In just a few years, his life had changed dramatically. Despite the challenges, Jack tried to stay optimistic, knowing he had a valid reason to do so. Jack, you see, was a father. His eldest of 5 children was now 15 years old. They were all boys and sometimes a pain to deal with. Jack's beloved wife, Jessica, had unfortunately died not long before, leaving him to raise the kids alone. Fortunately, Tyler, Jack's eldest son, stepped up to assist whenever he could, supporting his father's career by helping to raise his 4 younger brothers. Seated in his cab, Jack was making his way toward the city. The weather was awful, with heavy rain falling on his automobile and terrible traffic. Jack wished he were somewhere else. It was cold and dreary. He could feel his temper starting to rise as he considered the situation. He had a 45-minute window to pick up his next passenger, and at this pace, he might not even make it in time. He glanced out the window at the other vehicles in an attempt to collect himself. As he noticed the obviously content pair in the car beside him, his thoughts began to stray, and he began to miss Jessica, his wife, once more. Jack thought of his spouse. Just a few days had passed since she gave birth to their youngest child. She was happy and healthy, and everything looked to be going perfectly. However, she had a series of problems and eventually fainted. Her body was found unconscious by one of the neighbors, and she was sent to the hospital right away. Jack arrived to find that the baby had been saved, but his wife had sadly died. Jack placed the guilt on himself since he had been asked to cover for a fellow employee. He thought that he could have saved her if he had been home. It's another question entirely whether or not that's accurate. Unfortunately, Jack found it difficult to focus on his work after that. Having recently lost his wife made things difficult enough, but now he had to raise his 5 children by himself. His family came before his job, even though he enjoyed teaching and wished he could have continued in the field indefinitely. The students tried to comfort him and urged him to stay, but Jack knew that he couldn't. Jack regained consciousness when he heard a car's horn. He continued to drive a little further when he abruptly saw a woman and infant struggling in the weather by the side of the road. She wanted to travel to the airport and gestured for him to come down. Even though Jack was in a hurry, he felt sorry for the wet mother and her child and offered to give them a ride for free. If he hurried, he could possibly make it to the airport and then to his next fare. She entered the back with the infant. The mother thanked Jack for being so kind as to offer her a lift and placed the sleeping baby next to her. Until they arrived at the airport, she fiddled around on her phone. However, the woman informed him that she would have to leave quickly in order to catch her flight. As they drove up, she dashed inside the airport after jumping out of the automobile. Jack grinned, content with his good deed, and started to move away in the direction of the city. Suddenly, though, he noticed that the infant was still fast asleep in the back seat. Jack was taken aback. He parked and took the infant into the terminal while he made his way back to the airport in an attempt to locate the mother. He searched for an hour, but it was no good. There was no trace of the woman who had just been in his cab. In a panic, Jack dialed 911 and reported the incident. Soon after, the police arrived on the scene to look for the unidentified woman. Unable to assist the young girl any longer, Jack left her in the care of the policeman. When he returned home, his 5 boys were soundly asleep in their beds. Before going to bed, he prepared a meal and poured himself a cold beer, but he couldn't help but worry about the unfortunate baby the entire night. Jack contacted the police in the morning to inquire whether the mother had been found. The little girl was about to be placed in a foster home, as her mother had not come forward. Jack generously offered to adopt the abandoned baby since he couldn't bear to watch her leave for the foster home and felt some responsibility for her well-being. He was eventually designated as the child's legal caregiver after the authorities determined he would be a good father, and he gave her the name Lucy. The young girl was adored by all of Jack's sons, who together reared Lucy and built a close and intimate family with her. It seemed as if she were a biological sister to the boys. After many arduous years, Lucy had reached the age of 3. Jack regarded her as his own daughter. Even though she had developed into a self-assured and humorous little child, she could very well have been his real daughter because he had cared for her from such an early age. However, Jack received a call from the police station out of the blue. They had made contact with Lucy's biological grandparents. Jack was torn. He wanted to keep the little girl, but he was also relieved that a true family had been found. To meet the grandparents, he and Lucy proceeded to the police station. The elderly couple broke down in tears as soon as they saw the young girl, with the elderly mother confirming that Lucy was her grandchild. Jack told the old man and woman how he had ended up taking care of her, and after telling them the entire story, they listened carefully and said they would like him to meet them at their lawyer's office in the morning. Jack was concerned about whether they would take Lucy away from him when they quickly departed, but that was not nearly as unbelievable as the truth. When Jack showed up at the attorney's office the following day, he was utterly terrified. He was afraid he might lose Lucy because he had grown to love her. The girl's grandparents started off with a shocking revelation that brought Jack to tears. They informed him that a legal paper granting him guardianship over Lucy's $1.5 million inheritance was what they needed him to sign. Jack was shocked to hear that she had $1.5 million. He became aware that tears were streaming down his cheeks. The elderly man began speaking after he stammered and demanded an explanation. Tiffany, their daughter, never desired the child. She had always been a free-spirited, self-reliant girl, often to her detriment. She had wanted to abort the baby, but her parents persuaded her against it because they were religious and thought it wasn't the appropriate thing to do. Hence, she had fled her house and abandoned her child in the process, choosing not to have an abortion. This is how Lucy and Jack had met and how she became his cherished daughter. Her parents removed her from their will after she had done this, giving everything to their granddaughter. They had been looking for the child for the past 3 years, and until they heard reports that she was in the city, they had almost given up hope of finding her. Jack expressed his concerns, believing that Lucy would be taken away. The grandparents, however, only grinned broadly. It was not what they wanted to do. They couldn't split up a family that way since they could see how close Jack and Lucy were. For them, Lucy's safety and happiness with a loving family were the only things that counted. With great smiles on their faces, Jack and Lucy headed home. Lucy had not only inherited a substantial fortune, but she also had 2 grandparents, and that was priceless. Now, it is up to you. What are your thoughts on this amazing tale? If the poor little baby had been left in the back of the cab, would you have adopted her? And how do you think you would have felt when you found out she had inherited? Please feel free to share your ideas and opinions in the comments section below, as we always appreciate hearing from you. What do you think of this story? Let us know in the comments section. I hope you liked this story. Please give it a thumbs up and share it with your loved ones. Also subscribe and press the bell icon to never miss the update from our channel. Thank you.